Okay, so this is a pretty insane line, and it's really cool because when you break it down, there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, but when you break it down and analyze it, it pretty much all lines right up within the whole tone scale with some chromatic passing tones. So that's why I called it a chromatic whole tone, because he's basically taking like a D whole tone scale and he's maneuvering around it with some chromaticism throughout, and it creates this really cool sound. It's a great example of how you can play outside using a whole tone scale. He's doing this over a tune called Whippersnapper. It's an original of his, and it has this really long solo section where it's kind of all just based off of like a D sound. Like it's kind of D whatever. He does a lot of D minor stuff. He'll do dominant stuff. He'll do more outside stuff. But I just wrote it as being over a D7 chord because the bass player, he's doing a D and he's playing the F sharp in the bass line. So he's got the major third going. So we'll just treat it as if it was a D7 chord just for the sake of the video. So what's going on in this lick is that he's doing a bunch of stuff out of the D whole tone scale. So the whole tone scale is D, E, F sharp, G sharp, B flat, C, and D. So if we look at that against the key of D, we have the root, the second, the major third, the sharp 4, sharp 5 or flat 6, and the flatted 7th. So the notes that are really giving you that outside sound are the sharp 5 and the flat 5, right? So that's going to be a big part of what makes this line sound more outside, is those notes within the whole tone scale against that D7 sound. So we start up here on our 17th fret on the second string with our ring finger, and we pull off to the 15th fret with our pointer finger, and then you do this little augmented arpeggio. Pointer finger on D, and then you go up a string, pointer finger on B flat, and then your middle finger on F sharp. So that first little part, you could see D augmented with the E on top. So like augmented with the major second is what I would call that arpeggio. And then he just slides it down to a different position. Same arpeggio, but in a different position. And then you take that B flat note with your pointer finger, slide it down 2 frets, and then middle finger on E and ring finger on C. So, okay, and then we're going to do it one more time. So after that, your pointer finger goes to G flat on the 3rd string, and then you slide down 2 frets. And then the same augmented arpeggio again, C, A flat, and then you pull off to G flat. So, and that comes in, it's a 16th note run, it comes in on the E of 1. So it's 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. Okay, so right off the bat, it's just 3 arpeggios out of the 3 like augmented arpeggios with a scale note on top. Just kind of maneuvered around the different notes of the whole tone scale. And then from there, and then we're going to go like this. After the pull off, the middle finger goes to C on the next string, and then you go back to G flat. And then we do this cool, another cool little augmented pattern. We put our ring finger on the 11th fret, A flat, middle finger on C, pointer finger on E, and then back to the C. So just an augmented. And then one of the cool things about whole tone is whenever you're doing augmented stuff, you can just move it down 2 frets, play the same thing because it's a symmetric scale. So we move the same arpeggio down 2 frets. We do D, B flat, F sharp, and now this time you pull off to the E note. So now we have, or I'm sorry, pull off. So up to this point, we haven't had any chromaticism yet. It's all been straight out of the D whole tone scale, right? Now after this part, this is where the chromaticism comes in. We start with this. Now I really like that part a lot. Really cool chromaticism within the whole tone scale. So we have our pinky on C on the 4th string. Then you go down a half step, ring finger on B, middle finger on B flat, and then you go up, put your pointer finger on D. Now the way that I would think of that, if we're looking at the notes of our D whole tone scale, this note, this note and this note are all out of the whole tone scale, right? So all he's doing, he's putting one little chromatic in between, right? By putting that B in between the C and the B flat. So that is, pretty clearly just still staying within the whole tone scale, but then just doing one little chromaticism in between. And that's a really common thing that a lot of people will do with whole tone scale. They'll do these patterns where they put some sort of chromaticism in between the pattern. Like that Jonathan Kreisberg one. We did, so many licks back. But that's a very common thing with whole tone. It works really well with chromaticism because you can just find these little spots where you can weave in and out of some of the, the whole tone sort of fingerings. So now we have, after we do that, pick all 4 of those notes, and then a little more chromaticism. So ring finger on E, pointer finger on F sharp, and then down to D, and then E again, and right here, F sharp, G, G sharp. So another chromatic, but once again, if we look at all these notes, right, it's all out of that whole tone scale again, but we're just doing the chromatic in between one of the notes. So now we have, and that's actually, that's a hammer on. So now right here, this is a cool chromatic thing. I love that. So what's going on there after this? Put your middle finger on C on the first string, then ring finger back to G sharp. Now he just takes the same shape, just moves it down a half step, and then lands here. So once again, a little just half step to get to another spot in the whole tone scale fingering. So the fingering I do for that is this: middle, ring, pointer, middle. Now this is cool. So this is straight whole tone, pointer finger lands on B flat, and then you do pinky on D, middle finger on C, and then B flat again, and then slide down 2 frets. And then do another augmented. Middle finger on E, middle finger on E, middle finger on C. So really cool sound. Then right here, another augmented, but this time we have this, but he does a half step chromatic to the above the first note of the augmented. So it's middle finger on F, pull off to E, pointer finger on C, and middle finger on G sharp. So, and I think I'm doing the fingering, I'm going like this. After this, I put my ring finger on F and then I pull off to my pointer finger. So I can go like that. And then another one of those augmented arpeggios. Ring finger on D, pull off to C, middle finger on G sharp, ring finger on E, pull off to D. And then a pattern within those same set of notes again. Ring finger on G sharp, pointer finger goes to D, and then you hammer on to E with your ring. And then middle finger on G sharp again. So that's a cool pattern. Now right here, he brilliantly connects this into D Dorian with using these fingerings that were these kind of like chromatic fingerings that we're talking about. It's so cool what he does because he goes. So he goes. Once we get back to this C note, then your middle finger goes to G sharp and he just goes like this. Just moves it down a half step, and now suddenly we're playing out of like D Dorian instead of D whole tone. So it's a great example of how you can weave whole tone into Dorian, right? And then he resolves to the pointer finger on the A note and he does a straight Dorian line at the end. Really cool. So that ending line, you put your pointer finger on A and then pick B and C, back to B, and then pick A and pull off to the open. Okay? And then pointer finger on D on the second string, ring finger on E, pinky on F, back down. So. And I think actually I go like this. It just feels better for whatever reason rather than using the pinky. It just kind of flows. I just slide my ring finger for both. Okay, so the whole thing slow a couple times. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. 3, 4, 1. Okay, so pretty crazy lick, definitely very taxing on the hands, kind of exhausting to play that. But a lot of really cool stuff going on between the whole tone scale and the use of chromaticisms within the whole tone scale, and also how he weaves into Dorian at the end of it. So how you can kind of interweave Dorian and the whole tone scale if you're kind of playing over sort of like a loose jam, like with just kind of like a root note in mind, and you want to have some liberties to play around that. This is a great example of doing that. So that's the episode for this week. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. And if you would like to support the channel, you can do so at patreon.com/MikeGaudetteMusic. And I will see you guys at the next episode. Take care.